In the meantime, it is known that Conor McGregor made fun of Jake Paul on Thursday during a BKFC press conference following his acquisition of a portion of the bare knuckle fighting league. Before his fight against Paul, whom he referred to as a little dweeb, McGregor expressed his support for Mike Perry. Paul's criticism of Perry and the bare knuckle fighting community came first, but he swiftly turned his attention to McGregor. First of all, he's bigging up the BCFC. But you're going to witness what I did to their finest fighter on Saturday night. I'm going to shame their entire league because this guy has no skill. Those people are just brawler idiots, Jake Paul said during the pre-fight press conference. Guys from Street Fighter who are ignorant of the wonderful knowledge. Ironically, Conor McGregor won't fight me, but he can say whatever he wants. After their boxing encounter, Paul made a suggestion that they might switch to bare-knuckle combat. Perry, for his part, laughed at the idea, saying he didn't think Paul would be brave enough to take him on in a no-gloves fight with McGregor. Despite years of clamor for the fight, Paul has long wanted to face the Irish superstar. The main reason it never happened was because the former two-division champion was still bound by a UFC contract. Even though it doesn't seem likely that he would receive the response he wants this time, Jake Paul made mention of a possible battle between himself and McGregor in the boxing ring. He added, "Once I knock out Mike Perry, Conor McGregor, let's run it. But you won't do it because you know what's going to happen. You witnessed what I did to Nate Diaz, with whom you squared off. Therefore, Conor McGregor stopped using cocaine. Even if McGregor now has a stake in BKFC, go in the gym and start winning fights, and then perhaps we can talk." Although Perry wasn't entirely pleased with the remarks either, he did defend bare-knuckle fighters against Paul's critiques at the BKFC news conference. Perry is referred to as the King of Violence by McGregor, who dubbed him one of our main stars here. Perry wasted no time in reminding McGregor that he was a co-owner of BKFC before too. McGregor's appearance, and that BKFC had awarded him the King of Violence title after his victory over former UFC champion Eddie Alvarez. Perry called Paul a disrespectful person. "Punk, those guys and women over there fight for their families, risk everything, enter the ring, and perform for the audience." Conor remarked that although my name was self-proclaimed, I had been crowned the King of Violence, and when my tequila is released, it will surpass his whiskey in quality. Since Mike Tyson and Jake Gillen unexpectedly squared off in a boxing battle, July 20th has become a highly anticipated occasion. After Mike Perry took his spot to fight, Tyson decided to postpone the fight in order to make sure he was in peak health before taking on the much younger Paul. Although Paul had been announced, a sudden flare-up of an ulcer put doubt on the contest. Paul Tyson himself has warned Paul to remain on guard. Paul shared the advice Tyson personally gave him, saying, "Don't worry, I'm going to put this guy to sleep. This is the Mike appetizer, and you're next." Tyson expressed concern about Jake taking this fight. He said, "What is Jake thinking this guy Mike Perry is a killer?" Paul also provided an update on Tyson's health, saying that he is doing well and has already started training again. Despite Paul's obvious confidence in taking on Tyson, he seems to be more concerned for the 58-year-old's well-being than any of his past opponents. This was hardly Paul's usual show of respect prior to the battle. Mike Perry declared, "I'm taking home the W's, I'm taking home the money, and I'm taking home Jake's head. Let's go," since leaving the UFC, with the intention of departing Tampa with considerably more than he brought with him. With victories in all of his bare-knuckle bouts, Perry has established himself as the star of the BKFC. His stellar record includes knockout victories against former UFC champions Eddie Alvarez and Luke Rockhold, as well as former UFC championship contender Thiago Alves. Even though Paul could have professional boxing experience, Perry claimed prior to the battle that his extensive combat history would make a big difference in the fight. He said, "Listen, I've fought every year for the past 10 years. I'm a bare-knuckle boxing, and I'm an undefeated king of violence. I crush folks who have never been smashed before," Platinum said. He also noted that he was determined to take advantage of any future opportunities that will present themselves after his unexpected victory over Paul. "Tommy Fury defeated Jake in a little bout, but I'm come to destroy him. Jake can box, but I can fight. When you fight a boxer, you drag him into the deep end and wring his neck." Perry went on to say that everything he wanted could happen. He has all the cameras rolling. and they should have been watching me for years because I've been putting my heart and soul into this sport and giving it everything I have to train so that I can come out and wow the crowd on fight night. I'm excited for the chance to fight this guy." Veteran analyst Dan Hardy, on the other hand, expressed genuine surprise that Jake Paul was allowing Mike Perry to punch him, saying before the fight that it's a recipe for disaster for Jake Paul and that Perry will relish the opportunity, even though he never quite reached the level of a UFC fighter. Although contestant Perry continued to provide entertainment, it wasn't until he switched to bare-knuckle boxing with BKFC that he began to realize his full potential. Paul may not have experienced this level of intensity from Perry's fighting style before, so Hardy tells him to take this battle very seriously or else he might wake up in front of the spotlight. In addition, Hardy claimed that Mike Perry is an animal, a true barbarian, and that he has created for striking sports anything in which he is not concerned with someone attempting to get hold of him, take him down, or make it a slow night for him. Hardy stated that Jake Paul is large, strong, well-conditioned, and his boxing abilities are getting better. Hardy thought Jake would be too much for Nate Diaz in a fight. Despite the fact that Mike Perry brings a distinct passion to the ring and frequently uses his forehead and wild shots to create mayhem, Hardy said that while Nate didn't land any big hits or manage to disrupt or disarray Jake Paul in any way, he did indicate that Jake Paul has probably never experienced something like this in a combat sport situation before, with the possible exception of confronting partners during sparring. Hardy stressed that Jake Paul could not be quite ready for the strain he'll encounter from the first bell when facing Mike because of Perry's relentless attitude. Perry Hardy knows that even though Paul has a history of winning against skilled MMA fighters, Perry was not a part of any of those victories. Hardy is aware that if Paul is unprepared for what is going to happen on Saturday, he could be in for a very unpleasant awakening. Hardy stated that while facing Nate Diaz, you might feel as though you're being waterboarded, but you might not feel injured against Ben Askren. What will you be worried about, though, when he's wearing boxing gloves against Tyron Woodley? He could be dangerous if he throws something, and when Mike Perry is involved, you have all of those issues combined when facing Mike Tyson. Hardy understands that although Paul might win a significant sum of money and get a lot of media attention by fighting Tyson right now, it won't be the same as beating a Tyson who is even close to reaching his peak. Hardy acknowledged that fighting someone like Mike Tyson is always dangerous, but he added that you don't really gain anything from defeating him at this point in his career. Hardy said that beating Anderson Silva, who was 47, would have given him more recognition, but against Tyson, it would only damage his reputation. Tony Bellew made a prediction for the fight as well. He said that Jake would put on a memorable show. Bell also said that Jake Paul would win, and I think he'll look good doing it. Fair play to Jake and his team for getting this on, as he could have easily sat this one out and waited for the Tyson fight to come around. Bell also mentioned that Jake Paul wanted to stay active and avoid periods of inactivity. He noted that Jake was up against an experienced fighter, but he thought the fight would end early. Bellew stated that Jake has demonstrated his ability to compete with MMA fighters in boxing and expected Jake to demonstrate this again with a big, brutal knockout. If you enjoyed this one, be sure to check out some of our other videos on the screen.